I am very much a mood watcher, and I can normally tell you what I'm in the mood to watch just based on a theme or a subgenre. And at this point, you can break the horror genre into so many little subgenres and themes that there really is absolutely something for absolutely everybody. Now, when I started to make a list on my phone of themes and subgenres, I very quickly had 40 different things. So you can expect more of this kind of list in the future with different subgenres and themes every single time. Normally when I do recommendations lists, I tend to go for either things that I don't think anybody has actually heard of, that I think more people should go out and watch, or I go for movies that aren't necessarily as popular anymore or didn't get any popularity when they first came out, and I still think that these movies deserve that attention. And this list is kind of a little bit of both. Yes, there's some more niche movies on here for my niche movie lovers, but there's a lot of movies on here that you may possibly have heard of, but just never checked out and have now forgotten that these movies actually exist. If you're new here, I go by Hordes, and if you're not new, welcome back. I talk about horror movies here on my channel on Mondays and Fridays, and if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, maybe stick around and join the Horde by hitting that subscribe button. But without further ado, here are 10 horror movie recommendations based on subgenres and themes, and they are all movies that I have never talked about here on my channel before. So how about we start with something that relates to my channel name. The Girl with All the Gifts from 2016 is a zombie action horror. In a dystopian near future, humanity has been ravaged by a mysterious fungal disease. Humankind's only hope is a small group of hybrid children who crave human flesh but retain the ability to think and feel. At an army base in rural Britain, they are subjected to cruel experiments by Dr. Caldwell while attending school with teacher Helen Justinu, who forms a bond with a girl named Melanie. But when the base is invaded, the trio must escape with the assistance of Dr. Sergeant Eddie Parks, and they embark on a perilous journey to survive, during which Melanie must come to terms with who or what she really is. If you like the video game series or the TV series The Last of Us, and you like how the cordyceps brain infection turns everybody into human mushrooms, then you will like The Girl with All the Gifts, because it's kind of a similar virus in the sense of this is like a parasite, and if you've ever seen snails or ants with parasites, that is the same thing that The Girl with All the Gifts has gone for its zombie virus. Now, you are following a group of kids in the beginning who are born to parents who have been infected with this disease. There is actually some really big names in the cast for this. You've got Glenn Close, who is playing Dr. Caldwell, who is the scientist who is conducting experiments on these kids to try and figure out if there is a possible way to cure humankind. And then you've got Gemma Arterton, who is playing Helen Justinu, the teacher, who sometimes is a little bit blinded by her own decisions because she doesn't realise that these kids are as big a threat as they are. And I apologise because I always butcher this man's name. Paddy Constantine, who is playing Sergeant Eddie Parks. Most people know him from things like Dead Man's Shoes. He is the main sergeant in this. So we're talking some really big names. And this had a really decent budget behind it. This is a really good zombie movie. In fact, I would go as far as to say that this is possibly one of my favourite zombie movies. There's quite a lot of like discussions of humanity in this and how people will do whatever they can to survive, and how some people think that there is still good in all people when some people never had any good in them to begin with.
I'm just being honest.
You can expect children with a suppressed feral instinct that becomes deadly when they smell human pheromones, a kind-hearted teacher, and a girl who will do anything to save her, and a scientist who will stop at nothing to save humankind. Howl from 2015 is a werewolf horror thriller. A late-night train journey out of London turns into a hellish nightmare when the train suddenly comes to a halt. When the driver goes out to investigate and fails to return, the young guard and his band of commuters are left alone on the train and forced to fight for survival against a pack of malevolent and dangerous creatures. If you ever had to work a face-to-face job where you had to interact with rude people on a daily basis, then Howl might just be the movie for you, because Howl is full of those rude people being hunted down by a werewolf under a full moon, and a train guard realising that he doesn't have to be nice anymore under these circumstances, and he can actually tell these people exactly what he thinks of them. Some people should just have the day that they deserve. Added on top of this that the werewolves are actually played by actors in full prosthetic makeup, minus their hind legs, but there's a reason for that. And this movie is great. I am always going to be team practical effects over team digital effects. It's just, that's my preference. And there is never going to be anything wrong with a werewolf biting somebody and them going absolutely feral on their arsehole of a husband who deserves to have the day that he deserves, not a good day.
I said good day!
You can expect a group of entitled everyday adults finally getting the comeuppance that they deserve, a train guard probably wishing that he'd been on a different train that day, and a pack of werewolves patrolling round a passenger train. Tokyo Gore Police from 2008 is a Japanese splatter sci-fi action horror. In futuristic Tokyo, the police have become privatized and are in an ongoing battle with a race of supercriminals known as engineers, which have the ability to turn any injured body part into a weapon. The #1 engineer hunter, a samurai-wielding assassin named Ruka, is on a personal mission to avenge her father's assassination and to uncover her father's killer. Potential trigger warnings for absolutely everything in this movie, and if you think that this is one that you might be interested in but you are sensitive to certain topics, maybe check on Does the Dog Die First. I will say that this is not an exploitation movie, so bonus points for that, but if you like splatter movies where somebody will get a limb chopped off and it is like opening a fire hydrant where there is just buckets and buckets of blood, you will like this movie. It is one of my favourite movies of all time, and I have no shame in saying this about this weird movie, but rather than people getting a limb chopped off and just fire hydrants of blood, things like machine guns will grow out of their missing limb. It's that kind of crazy. If you like insane Japanese horror movies where you never know what direction the plot is gonna go in and it keeps you guessing and weirder things keep happening, Tokyo Gore Police. I can't describe to you anything more than the basic synopsis for Tokyo Gore Police because this is one of those movies that you just need to experience for yourself or you're never gonna believe that this movie actually exists.
What the hell happened?
You can expect human weapon hybrids, the strangest BDSM bar that you will ever see, tumours shaped like keys, and buckets of blood. The Devils Carnival from 2012 is a horror musical. 3 individuals, including a conniving kleptomaniac, a gullible teenager, and an obsessed father, have accidentally stumbled into a carnival in hell, run by the Old Scratch themselves. They soon find that they are the entertainment, and the 3 are doomed to repeat the very sins that delivered them to the carnival's doorstep alongside the carnival's inhabitants. I get it, musicals aren't for everybody, and there aren't too many of them within the world of horror. But I think when most people think of Darren Lynn Bousman, they either think Saw, or they think Repo the Genetic Opera, and if you haven't seen Repo the Genetic Opera, go and watch Repo the Genetic Opera as well, because it is one of my favourite movies and I recommend it to absolutely everybody in person. But The Devil's Carnival is kind of the spiritual successor to Repo the Genetic Opera. They are not related in any kind of way in terms of the plot, but a lot of the people who were in that first movie, Repo the Genetic Opera, happen to also be in The Devil's Carnival. 2 of the characters in this also happen to be played by people from the music industry who were quite popular around the time. One of them is still very popular now, and that is Ivan Moody, who is the lead singer of Five Finger Death Punch, happens to play the clown in this, and Emily Orton plays the painted doll. The Devil's Carnival is also just under an hour long, and if you like Repo the Genetic Opera or you like The Devil's Carnival, you will like the other one because the soundtracks are similar enough while still being different that you can tell that these are from the same creative teams.
Different, but same.
You can expect the devil himself reading Aesop's fables, 3 deadly circus acts, and to understand why you should never trust a scorpion. Would You Rather from 2012 is a psychological death game horror. Desperate to help her ailing brother, Iris unknowingly agrees to compete in a deadly game of Would You Rather, hosted by a sadistic aristocrat, where participants will compete in sadistic games of increasing amounts of money, but the dilemmas will also become increasingly deadlier. When I recommended that you should go and watch Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls, there was one thing that I said during that recommendation that seemed to sell absolutely everybody on watching that movie. And I am about to bring that statement back again, because Jeffrey Combs is the bad guy in this. He's not got the same twirly villain mustache that he has in Onyx the Fortuitous and the Talisman of Souls, but he's still got a mustache in this one, and this time he is playing a rather obnoxious posh boy who has got far too much money and wants to watch people play a sadistic game of Would You Rather. There is another very well-known person in this, and I'm going to have to describe what their previous career was in YouTube-friendly terms. Sasha Grey is in this, and this was when she was going to try and take her career from the more mature movie where people don't tend to keep their clothes on for very long into mainstream horror, and she actually does a really good job of playing Amy, alongside a lot of really well-known people from like late 2000s to sort of mid to 2010, shall we say. There's a lot of people in this that you will recognise. I wanted to include a death game on this list because I watch a lot of death game movies. It is one of my favourite subgenres, but I understand that it is not a subgenre that everybody enjoys, so I wanted to pick one that, while it's a death game, doesn't feel like a battle royale death game. There's a lot more going on to Would You Rather. It's more psychological at times, which is why I actually picked this one for this list. You can expect a deadly game of choice, an ice pick, and to question how long could you hold your breath when a small fortune was on the line. The Platform from 2019 is a dystopian horror thriller. In a vertical prison, 2 inmates are assigned to each floor, which randomly changes every month, and forced to ration food from a platform that moves between the floors, from which they only have 2 minutes per day to eat from. Those on the upper floors take more than their fair share, while those below are left to starve on scraps, until one man decides to change the system. The Platform actually does a great job of showing what is known as the trickle-down method, which is the idea that the rich will earn more money, and in the end that means that they will spend more money on everybody who is financially below them. But this isn't actually what happens. What actually happens is the rich just continue to get richer because they already have everything that they need, and everybody else below them gets poorer and poorer. The Platform just does this with food. Those on the top layer gorge themselves and thin out the food supplies so that as the Platform continues to go down through the levels, there is less food for everybody else, which means those on the lower levels are asked some incredibly difficult questions. Do you wait for the Platform to eventually get to your level and hope that there is food there, knowing that whatever floor you are on, that is the floor that you will stay on for the entire month? Do you kill your roommate and resort to cannibalism in order to keep yourself alive and hope that the roommate you end up with in the next shuffle doesn't return the favour on you? Or do you jump down the hole and end everything because death is possibly a better solution than never being fed the entire month?
No, glug glug glug, chomp chomp chomp.
You can expect to see the human mind unravel, watch inmates get pushed to their limits, and a man who is about to try and break the system by riding the platform from the top to the bottom, not knowing what awaits him at the end. The Final Girls from 2015 is a slasher horror comedy. When Max and her friends reluctantly attend a tribute screening to the infamous 80s slasher movie that starred Max's late mother, they are accidentally sucked into the silver screen. They soon realise they are trapped inside the cult classic movie and must team up with the fictional and ill-fated camp bloodbath counsellors, including Max's mum as the shy scream queen, to battle the film's machete-wielding masked killer. With the body count rising in scene after iconic scene, who will be the final girls left standing and live to escape the film? I personally think that The Final Girls is a great movie for those who really like slasher movies and for those who aren't overly sold on the genre as a whole, because there's a lot more going on here besides man kills lots of people or woman kills lots of people. You know, the basis of a slasher movie. At its core, The Final Girls is a story about friendship and family and learning and discovering things that you didn't necessarily know about those that we think we know the best. It also asks its audience, do you think that you could survive one of these at summer camp sort of slasher movies? How well do you know them? Because the only way that you're going to survive this movie is to use your knowledge of this type of movie. Its humour is very similar to Scary Movie in the way that it is a parody, but it's also a homage, and it pokes fun at this subgenre and how it does tend to recycle the same tropes and stereotypes over and over again. So if you've seen one, you can kind of guess what's gonna happen in them all. Plus, it's got the song Betty Davis Eyes and Cherry Pie, so you can thank me later because its soundtrack is an 80s banger. You can expect a daughter getting to know her mum in a way that she would never have expected, every single stereotype about teenagers in camp slasher movies that you can think of, teens stuck in a time loop trying to figure out how to get out of this 80s slasher movie, and a classic slasher villain to top it off. Splice from 2009 is a science-based horror. Genetic engineers Clive and Elsa hope to achieve fame by successfully splicing together the DNA of different animals to create new hybrids for medical use. When they are told by their employer to halt their groundbreaking work, they decide to secretly continue, but this time splicing in human DNA, and end up creating a dangerous creature. Splice is a movie about genetic modification and engineering, and it takes the idea of taking plant DNA and animal DNA and splicing them together in a way that creates a new life form in order to eliminate diseases or things that you inherit from your parents. So yes, this is kind of a eugenics kind of based thing. Now bear in mind, it is actually illegal to use human DNA in splicing experiments, and this is actually talked about in the movie, so yes, there is actually science behind the science-based movie. The horror in this comes from the messing around in the unknown and asking the question, just how far is too far when it comes to the purpose of science? You really do feel for Dren, who is the hybrid that they create in this movie, because she is a captive at the end of the day, and she is treated as both a child and an experiment by her scientists. And I do think that this movie is possibly not going to be for everybody because there is a lot of scientific terminology and jargon in this. So if you're somebody that likes biology and chemistry and all types of medical science, you will like Splice. If this isn't something you're into, I would suggest maybe skipping Splice because science and medicine isn't always going to be for everybody.
Science.
You can expect a human hybrid created in a lab that grows at a rapid pace, 2 very aggressive slug creations, and 2 scientists who are in way over their heads. The ABCs of Death from 2012 is a horror anthology. Inspired by children's educational books, the ABCs of Death is comprised of 26 individual chapters, each helmed by a different director from around the world assigned a letter of the alphabet, who were each given free rein to choose a word to create a story around involving death. I understand that this is the obvious choice when it comes to a horror anthology, but when was the last time that you actually heard somebody talk about the ABCs of Death, or its sequel, the ABCs of Death 2, or ABCs of Death 2.5? Because I haven't heard anybody talk about them in quite a while now. And I don't think people realise as well that the same team behind this also created another horror anthology called The Field Guide to Evil. The premise for the ABCs of Death were 26 individual letters of the alphabet were assigned to filmmakers and creatives all around the world who were each given a $5,000 budget to do with whatever they wanted, and this is the collection of short movies that they created. This is one of those anthologies where it received very mixed reviews, but for the simple reason of nobody is ever gonna like every single short movie on an anthology, and when there are 26 of them, let's just say that there is something really for every single person's taste. And even if it's not in the ABCs of Death 1, there'll be something on the ABCs of Death 2 or 2.5. You have so many short movies to choose from, and there really isn't any similarity between any of the shorts across any of these movies. This is also my recommendation if you are looking to explore world cinema, but you have no idea what countries that you might actually be interested in looking into, because there are so many countries featured in this. Think of it as like a buffet where you can go around and you can get little bites and see what you actually want to commit to.
Guess it's back to the buffet.
You can expect all kinds of different horror from all around the world, featuring everything from samurais to furries to dogs to rice. There really is something for absolutely every taste within the ABCs of Death. When the Lights Went Out from 2012 is a paranormal horror. Yorkshire, 1974. Britain is in a recession, the oil crisis and the blackouts loom large. The Maynard family moves into their dream house only to find a presence already living there. Len, Jen and daughter Sally must struggle to keep their already fragile family together as they are attacked by poltergeists. Soon it becomes apparent that Sally is their main focus of attention as the house becomes a living nightmare, where they must exorcise the evil spirits for them to survive. If you are familiar with haunted locations around the world, then the address 30 West Drive, Pontefract, West Yorkshire should mean something to you, because this is the home of Europe's most violent poltergeist, who is known as Fred, or the Black Monk. Now, I first discovered this movie thanks to an episode of Most Haunted. Now, if you didn't know, the Most Haunted crew has actually been banned from 30 East Drive since they filmed there, because they actually damaged the property and threw knives around the house. Don't get me started though on the Most Haunted crew, because that's an entire discussion for another day, because the number of times that they have been exposed for toe tapping in steel toe boots, and the fact that their cameraman is called Pebbles, should tell you everything you need to know. Or you could just watch Beardo Get Scared debunking video on Most Haunted if you want proof that these guys are not legit. Now, the events that take place in this movie are actually inspired by real events that happened in 1984 to the Pritchard family, and this movie is actually filmed in that same house. This movie takes place and is actually filmed in 30 East Drive. Up until 2012, the house was actually owned by the mother of the Pritchards, and she sold it to the producer of this movie, who still owns the house today. You can visit this location. The movie mostly revolves around 13-year-old Sally, because the actual family that this is based on, most of the activity revolved around the kids. Imagine being pulled backwards up the stairs by something that you can't see. These are the sort of things that are on record. This is one of those movies though where there is no blood, there is no gore, it is straight up paranormal, supernatural, psychological goodness. So if you're somebody that doesn't like blood and gore, this one might be for you.
You're welcome!
You can expect a story inspired by real life events, a friendship that will get pushed to its limits because of paranormal activity, and a poltergeist who has a vengeance against children. So there you have it, 10 horror movie recommendations based on themes and subgenres. If you have any themes or subgenres you would like me to get to in the future, drop them in the comment section down below so I know which ones I should prioritize next. And if you would like to watch any of these movies, I will leave links to justwatch.com for every single one of them so you can find out where they are streaming in your country. And if you would like to know where else you can find me, I am over on Instagram and Letterboxd at HordesOfHorror. But here on YouTube, I will be back on Friday. In the summer, I did a video talking about the 6 movies that I wanted to prioritise watching over summer, and I tackled them all here on YouTube. So I am bringing it back for autumn/fall, but this time there are 4 movies that I want to prioritise getting to, which you will find out on Friday. So until next time, bye!